Hi folks, you're with Tacitus Today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the issue of supposed or alleged full employment and incredibly, remarkably low levels of supposed unemployment. Now, the level of unemployment and by theoretical extension, full employment, the level of low unemployment, around 3%, 4% maybe, which is historically, certainly over the last 40 odd years, quite a low rate of employment. Somehow only the countries of the world that are subject to mass peasant migration, that is illiterate peasants from the third world, it's only in those countries where there's this massive influx of peasants, unemployable, illiterate peasants. It's only in those countries where we're told by the globalist controlled governments that unemployment is 3 or 4%. So this defies gravity, for goodness sakes. Known law of physics would apply here. You go, wow. So say in the case of the United States, 10 plus million people are coming in, to the 3 million a year, 4 million a year are coming into the United States, yet unemployment is still incredibly low. I mean, how does this happen? Now, on top of this, when you look at, say, in the case of President-elect Trump's agenda to deport illegal, President-elect Trump's agenda to deport illegal aliens, which are alleged to be somewhere in the vicinity of 30 million. There's some numbers saying it's even higher than that. Some are even projecting that it could be over 50 million illegals. But when you look at construction companies, recently some construction company CEOs have come out and said that something in the order of 35 to 50% of their workforce is made up of illegal aliens. Now that's a pretty bold claim to make, given that in theory at least, some heavy fines are going to be levied to businesses that use this. Now they'll use all sorts of labour hire front companies to escape culpability. We sort of know that, but just looking at the claim that many people, that many workers rather, are illegal aliens. So the follow-on claim is thus that nothing will ever get built in the United States again. There will never be any roads built or bridges or schools or anything. Nothing will be built again because there just won't be anyone to do it. And this is sort of touted as being, well, there you go. So we can't deport all these people because all these illegals are needed, and without them, all construction and infrastructure building and so on would grind to a halt. Now, assuming you even believe that nonsense, but for the moment, let's assume that has at least some merit. Now, in other areas, looking at, say, farming as an example, particularly picking crops with things like picking the avocados or the oranges or the apples or whatever, any sort of, particularly fruit picking, and the claim that fruit will never be picked, and an avocado is going to cost $100 each, and all these claims that are again fanciful and I would argue delusional. Then you go to things like the takeout food and food delivery, Amazon deliveries, pizza deliveries, and also the takeout food stores of all types, pizzas, chicken shops, whatever, and burger places. And apparently these are all illegal as well. So now how so many illegal people are able to get employment when it's illegal to employ illegals is quite beyond my comprehension. But let's assume all of that's true. So the allegation is you get rid of the you deport the illegals. Even if you deport one single illegal, it seems that's all it's going to take for the whole thing to come crashing down. But the claim is that well over half the takeout food stores will have to close. There'll be no deliveries made. You won't be able to get a pizza delivered ever again. Fruit won't be picked, or again, it's going to be horrendously expensive, or nothing will get built again in terms of construction and infrastructure and roads and so on. So now, if you look at the amount of people employed, theoretically employed in those industries, then you'd be pushing 50 million. So maybe there are 50 million illegals in the US after all, of these guys giving the game away. But the whole thing's a lot of hot air. Let's even accept on the face of it that that's correct, or more or less, it's somewhat correct. Maybe embellished a bit. What this means is there's been an incredible explosion over the last 20 years in low-paying subsistence wage jobs that have no benefits attached, that are casual. You've got 15 minutes to get to work from the time you get the call, otherwise that's it. So a huge change in working conditions, and also that these jobs pay in a high-cost first world society. These jobs don't pay enough to exist. You can only live communally if you're being paid those jobs. So you become part of the working poor. So even though you're working full time, you still, to make ends meet, you still have to get government handouts, food stamps and whatever, to get by. And you'd still be living on the body. Your belt buckle would still be dragging along the ground at the end of it. So why has there been such a huge explosion in low-paying jobs? Is it because there's a huge availability of low-wage labour coming from the third world? That could be one reason. Is it because a central planning commissariat has designated those industries as low-paying, and therefore the pay is artificially suppressed in order to meet the dictates of the central planning commissariat? Or is it something else? Is the profit so tight in these industries that they can only survive by importing third world peasants? If so, then the economy needs to make some adjustments there to reflect that in a competitive economy, a market-driven economy, not an economy planned by a central secretariat, that there needs to be a realignment and a redeployment of resources. If you generally can't make a buck at having a pizza shop, or delivering pizzas for that matter, if you can't make a buck at it, then should lots and lots of people be opening pizza shops? And why would they want to do that if it's such a tough gig to make money, and the only way to make money is to employ illiterate peasants from the third world? So you can have all these things are interlocking, and they make an interactive matrix of economic and business considerations, and that's fine. But coming back now to the employment numbers, this claim that unemployment is so low, I don't buy that for a minute. Now, I get around in the business sector quite a bit, and there are jobs like operations managers and vice presidents of operations, those sorts of gigs that are attracting in Australia, in Sydney, attracting hundreds of applicants. And I'm talking to the CEOs of some of these companies, say, gee, we got 322 applicants for that operations director gig we advertised. Now for Australia and for Sydney, that's monumental numbers. I mean, that's off the charts number. Now, I don't know what the quality was. Were they all people from Central Africa or something who were applying? I don't know. Were they all local people? Were they? But no matter how you look at it, those numbers are huge. Now, even for technical positions where you do need you need like an electrical engineering degree, that sort of stuff. Even there, they're getting 50 applications, which for that sort of level of specialty, that's huge. Typically with those sort of gigs, you'd be lucky to get 10 applicants. and more likely you get 3 or 4. There are some specialist gigs where, again, you'd be lucky to get 2 or 3 applicants, and today they're getting 25 or 30. So this idea of unemployment, that unemployment is low, I don't buy that for even a second. Now, also, there's an issue, certainly with straight white men, particularly as they get older, into my sort of age, is underemployment is an issue. You don't want older straight white males because they're all fascist, Nazi, literally Hitlers, and so on. So there's a lot of discrimination against people in that category, and yet the complaint is, you look at any economist to say, well, this is, the Western world's in real trouble because the highly skilled cohort of merit-based baby boomers who with their credentials and their skills and their expertise, they're retiring or dying off or whatever. So as they aren't being replaced. Now, this is an argument that's waved around to say, well, mass migration. So what, we're going to get all these highly skilled people from these third world basket case economies? Oh, yeah, sure we are. But there isn't the development of those skills or the merit-based training and qualifications for people coming through. Affirmative action and diversity, equity, inclusion has really shot all that to pieces. So the argument is that there's all these highly skilled white people that are approaching retirement age, which is true, by the way. They are, the baby boomer. I mean, I was just on the, I came 1 or 2 years after the baby boom sort of period. But I'm right on the edge of the cusp of it. So I can see around me the people I know, people in my approximate age group, they are approaching, and if they've done quite well, and they've inherited well, or they've made some lucky investments or something like that, then some of these people are retiring early. They're thinking at 60, they've got a nice juicy nest egg for retirement, so they're going to retire at 60 and go on Caribbean cruises or something like that and spend their time doing those sorts of things. Some of them have worked very hard for the money they've got. All power to them if that's what they want to do. But the skills that they're taking out of the workforce, the pool of skills they're taking out of. But these people, pretty much all of them that I know, and I'm thinking off the top of my head, pretty much all of them I know are underemployed. Those who have been laid off, the corporation closes down or mergers and they get heaved overboard. They're finding it really hard to get alternative employment in anything like the skill level that they can put on the table. Now they can get a job as a bum boy or something somewhere, but they can't go back. They can't sort of re-slot in at the skill level they were at. That's a black lesbian's been given that job through affirmative action. So there's not only, I think the unemployment rate is far higher than they're saying. Especially, you like an operations director, you don't get 300 plus applications for that. That's ludicrous. Even an operator, quite an executive VP of operations where they want this, that, the next thing, and this and that qualification. Even they're getting 150 to 200 applications just around the place. So again, now this is in Sydney, so it's big city and everything like that. Even this is a rural township that's hundreds of miles outside of Sydney, and they were we're doing business with them, and they were needing a what was it? Like a guy to be in charge of all the field technical support over quite a wide district and area. Even there, they got over 20 applications for that, and it's in the middle of fucking nowhere. So I think the unemployment rate is far higher than it's being suggested. And that the underemployment is massive. Now, there are some numbers come out of the UK that suggest that 10 million people of working age are not working. Now, if you take 10 million, that's that's close to a quarter, if not more than a quarter of the total complement of those available or potentially available for work. Now, you can have some double counting there where some may have gone back to school, for example. But nonetheless, when you talk about 10 million, I mean, the population of the UK is what, 70 million? 10 million people, adults of working age, are unemployed. I mean, that's insane. So, and I think those numbers are really, in proportion to total population, are replicated around the world. So, and say in the case of the United States, I wouldn't be surprised if there are easily 20 million people of working age unemployed, and I'm not talking just recent migrants or anything like that. And I think numbers would be similar in Australia. You don't get hundreds upon hundreds of applications for one job if unless unemployment's very high. And so I think unemployment would probably, instead of the 3.5%, 4.1%, those sort of numbers, I think unemployment would be somewhere between 10 and 12% in reality, and that there's more skilled people in proportion to the total. There's more skilled people who are unemployed than floor sweepers. So coming back now to this also there's been things like reclassifications of people under disability schemes and things. So they would have been classified as unemployed, but now they're classified as disabled, and it's the same sort of thing. They've just moved them onto another page of the program. So coming back into this issue of the explosion of low-paying jobs. Now I see it now, and I just did one earlier today, just quickly. This is on the biggest internet job board in Australia, and once you get to what is touted as the average wage or the median, there's not a vast difference between the two. Once you get to that point, then why is it that only 30% of jobs, this is advertised jobs, only 30% of jobs pay the average wage or greater? Now, when they talk about an adult, what they call a qualified, this assumes you have some sort of credentials or qualifications. The average wage is higher again. It's about 30-40% higher than the average of the total average. This is the average supposedly for skilled workers. So if you do a sort on the jobs, and you go, less than 20% of the jobs are in that category. So the reality is that 65, close to 68%, looking at numbers here, of all jobs pay less than the average wage, and 50% of jobs pay about half the average wage or less. So what we're looking at here is a situation where there is a vast number of subsistence wage jobs. That's the reality. Now, it never used to be like that. That wasn't how it was, but it is now. And the third world peasant migrants are overwhelmingly being put in there to fill these roles. But the reality is that it's not simply a matter of pay, although it's that. The cost of living has outstripped pay by huge amounts. Even though the average wage of 35 years ago, 40 years ago, was enough to get by and rent your own place and run a motor vehicle, that sort of thing. It's now not even half what you need to do that. Just over the last 5 years, rents on a 3-bedroom standalone house in Sydney, rents have gone up by nearly $20,000 a year just over the last 5 or 6 years. So the average wage falls further and further and further behind what's needed to exist day to day. So the only way these people can live is communally, and that's why the third world thing is attractive, because that's how they live in the third world. So they come over to Australia and just replicate. They live in the ghettos and replicate the sort of standard living, the quality of life issues that they had in Pakistan or India or somewhere, Africa or wherever. So looking at it, they could live 20 people to a 2-bedroom apartment, which means they can make ends meet based on those wages. Now, in addition to that, working conditions have also changed considerably. The sort of employment rules and regulations that used to exist years ago don't exist anymore. So say even people working at a major retail chain, grocery store, for example, they can be rostered on to work from 6 till 10. Then they can be told to go home. We don't need, we only want you for 4 hours. So they can be told to go home. And then at 2 o'clock, they're told to come back to work from 2 till 6. Now, that was never allowed, those split shifts. And if you did, you had to pay a premium rate on both those split shifts if you did that. So you had to, pay, say, like a 25% loading because you were splitting the shift up. And you had to give a week's notice of a change in roster or this sort of thing. But a lot of that, even in the major chains, particularly in the smaller business, a lot of that's just gone out the window. So the guy who owns one of the pizza shops in the town, whenever I go to pee, all he does is jawbone me about how hard it is to get pizza delivery drivers and things like that. And he's genuinely put out by, and he's a big exponent of mass migrant. The more illiterate peasants there are out there, the better chance I've got of exploiting their naivety or their desperation or both in getting pizza drive. But he won't roster people on. He won't guarantee someone a minimum amount of hours or anything like that. So if Stas gets busy and he's got some pieces to do, he'll just call someone up. He'll just keep on calling until someone comes in. So he wants all the drivers to be on standby, just ready to come as soon as he calls. And he wants them there in 10 minutes and this sort of thing. And if they live more than a few miles away, he won't even entertain them for that. He wants people that come straight away when he calls. And he might call a number of people. They may, 3 of them may turn up, and he'll just take the first one and tell the other 2 to, you can fuck off. I don't need you here. So these are deplorable working conditions. Now, I try to explain to them that if you give people a roster, say, look, I'm going to employ you for 7 nights, or how many nights he wants, 5 nights, whatever it is, or even if it's Fridays and Saturdays, just say, okay, I guarantee you, 6 hours a night, or 8 hours a night, or whatever it might be, and I guarantee you that. So come hell or high water, that's your roster. So people will actually commit to that, but he won't commit to them, and he wants people to drop whatever they're doing and come at the last minute. Just because he's made the big phone call. And so he can't find reliable people because he won't commit to them, so they won't commit to him. But he complains it should be a one-way thing. No, I don't have to commit to you, but you have to commit to me. I said, is that really a practical way of doing it? No, I don't care. My business can't survive unless I do that. Well, you think you're in the wrong fucking business. But nonetheless, I think that attitude is replicated across construction. It's replicated across take-out food deliveries. It's replicated across the whole range, that those sort of jobs exist, and that's what we have to deal with. And when that is dealt with, recognised as a problem and corrected, then I think a lot of these issues will go away. But it'll also mean demand for cheap third world peasant labour will also evaporate, which will be a good thing. You've been with Tacitus today, your pushback channel. Thank you for listening.